You know, when you think of Greenland, you probably picture a huge, empty, frozen wasteland. And you're not wrong. But why has this island of ice suddenly become the center of a massive global power struggle? We're going to peel back the ice and uncover a wild story of military strategy, unbelievable treasure, and a high-stakes fight for the future of our planet. Okay, let's get into it.
So this whole thing really exploded into the headlines when former US President Donald Trump made his intentions crystal clear. He didn't just casually mention wanting to buy Greenland, he pretty much said he was prepared to take it, even hinting that a military option wasn't off the table.
And that right there is the big question. Why? Why all this intense focus on a remote Danish territory that's known more for glaciers than for geopolitics? Well, the answer, as we're about to see, is way bigger than most people think, and it could literally change the world as we know it.
To really get the why, we first have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale and, frankly, the weirdness of Greenland itself. First off, it's the largest island on Earth. And I mean, it's not even close. To put it in perspective for you, Greenland is bigger than Mexico, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia combined. It's just a colossal piece of land.
But here's the catch. A staggering 80% of it is buried under a permanent sheet of ice, and in some spots, that ice is over a mile thick. Temperatures up north can drop to minus 50 degrees Celsius. We're talking about one of the most hostile environments on the entire planet.
Which brings us to this number. For all that massive size, only 57,000 people live there, and they're mostly huddled together on the slightly less frozen coasts. So you've got this gigantic landmass with almost nobody on it. Why would anyone on Earth fight over it?
Well, the first piece of the puzzle has nothing to do with who's there and everything to do with where it is. America's interest in Greenland isn't new at all. It's actually a century-long obsession that's all about strategic security.
And get this isn't just some recent idea. The US tried to buy Greenland way back in 1867. Right after they bought Alaska, they tried again in 1910. Then after World War II, President Truman offered $100 million in gold for it. That's over $1 billion today. And every single time, Denmark said, nope, not for sale.
So why keep trying? Just look at a globe. Greenland is sitting in the perfect spot right between North America and Russia. From a military point of view, whoever controls Greenland has a commanding view and position over the entire Arctic.
And this is where America's modern-day anxiety comes in. The U.S. has its super important Thule air base in Greenland, which is packed with early warning radar that can spot Russian missiles the second they launch. But here's the problem. There's a growing independence movement in Greenland. Washington is terrified that an independent Greenland, which has no army of its own, might either kick them out or become vulnerable to Russian or Chinese influence. It all comes down to one word: control.
But you know, location is only half the story. The real prize, the thing that's driving this new global frenzy, isn't on the surface at all. It's what's buried deep, deep under all that ice.
Okay, let's talk about rare earth elements. These are the minerals you absolutely need for basically all of our future tech. And here's the problem. Right now, China controls about 90% of the world's supply. That gives them a terrifying chokehold on the global economy.
And this is where Greenland completely changes the game. It's sitting on one of the planet's biggest untapped stockpiles of these exact minerals. We're talking about neodymium for electric cars, gallium for AI chips, uranium for nuclear power, silicon for solar panels, you name it. For the West, breaking China's monopoly is a massive priority.
And it's not just fancy minerals. Geologists estimate there are at least 31 billion barrels of oil just under the seabed of northeast Greenland alone. Imagine what the total amount could be across the whole island. It's probably astronomical.
And the important stuff isn't just under the ground, it's under the ocean. Even the internet is at stake here. The vital fiber optic cables connecting North America and Europe run right past Greenland. The US is worried that in a conflict, Russia could just snip those cables and cripple global communications. So controlling Greenland also means protecting these digital lifelines.
But as critical as all that is, the military bases, the minerals, there's one last thing that turns Greenland from just a strategic asset into maybe the single most important piece of real estate of the 21st century. You see, as the planet warms and the Arctic ice melts, a brand new shipping lane is opening up, the Northwest Passage. For a giant container ship going from Asia to Europe, this new route is almost 9,000 kilometers shorter than going through the Suez Canal. That saves about 15 days of travel and millions of dollars in fuel on a single trip. This is going to completely revolutionize global trade.
And this is the ultimate prize. Greenland sits right at the entrance of this new global superhighway. So whoever controls Greenland is basically controlling the toll booth for the future of world commerce. They become the gatekeeper.
So the stakes couldn't be clearer. Military dominance, resource freedom, and control over future trade. But what would be the price if America actually tried to seize that control?
Well, Denmark's prime minister didn't pull any punches. A forced takeover of Greenland would be an attack by one NATO member on another. And NATO's own charter says an attack on one is an attack on all. It would absolutely shatter the most successful military alliance in history. The fallout would be just catastrophic. Sure, the US might become the sole Arctic superpower, but the trust between America and Europe would be gone, probably forever. It would spark a massive trade war with China. Large-scale mining would devastate Greenland's fragile ecosystem. And worst of all, the 57,000 indigenous people of Greenland would lose their land, their culture, and their freedom.
You see, what's happening with Greenland isn't just some short-term political drama. The choices being made right now are going to define the next 100 years.
That's because a move like this would set a terrifying new precedent for our century, that might makes right. It would be a signal that we're going back to an era where powerful countries can just take land and resources from weaker ones, and that could kick off a whole new age of global conflict.
So, the question we're left with is a heavy one. As the ice melts and the world's great powers all converge on this one remote island, will Greenland's fate be a path to peace, decided with respect for its people? Or will the fight for Greenland become the spark that ignites the next world war?